And
Good
we're like,
morning.
I can't count that high. I only have so many fingers and toes. All right, and we're
Yay.
live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just three nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. So without further ado, we've got he's returning for us, but first time on the Blasters and Blades, friend of the show, the legendary cyborg wolf himself, Mr. Jonathan Yanez. So how you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me on, guys. I'm excited to talk with you. And I think the last two times I was on, we just did audio. So the visual is like a nice added aspect as well.
Yeah, we're growing a little bit of our audience over there on the YouTubes. And at some point in time when I have time, which I don't know if that ever happens, but in theory we could, we're going to try probably like BitChute or whatever everyone else is putting their stuff, just sort of diversify. But primarily our audience is the podcast listening audience, which is still cool because that's what we started with. But we're having fun, which is the important part.
Yes.
And
Besides, this way we can make fun of JR more for not seeing his face. No, I'm kidding.
This is true. This is true. So, Jonathan, can you tell for the listeners who might not know who you are a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I started writing about 9 years ago. Just had a job that I knew I didn't really want. I always wanted to write. Wasn't sure how to break into writing. Didn't know anything, but I kind of just came to this coming to Jesus moment in my life where I thought, like, hey, if I don't quit my job now and really give this 100%, I'm never going to do it. So I quit my job without having any other backup plan, which was not a great idea in retrospect. Cashed in my 401k, so there was no safety net, no savings or anything. And then I told my wife what I did, and that was a fun conversation. And then I just kind of put my back.
You survived it, though.
Yes,
so
I'm still alive. Still alive. I still flinch when she raises her hand, but I'm still alive.
So you learned the value of a comfortable couch, though, I'm told.
Yeah, exactly. So no, she's been great though. She was super supportive, and like for the first 5 years, just fell on my face over and over and over and over again. Made every mistake in the book. Had to come up with the School of Hard Knocks. Like I know that there are authors who are out there who hit it big with the first book, or even with the first series, or second series, or third series. That was not me. So the first 5 years, kind of just paying some dues and learning. And then I would say in 2018, things kind of started taking off. Just a lot smarter about marketing and covers and all that kind of stuff. It was fun though.
That's complicated to do though.
Yeah, it was a lot of learning what did not work, so I could learn what would work.
What's that they say? You're instant success, several years in the making. Something along those lines you hear people talk about with business, because a lot of people just when they find you, you're successful, just you being the more generic, like, oh, you just got lucky. I'm like, no, you just ignored the hard work that led up to that.
No, gosh, no. The hardest working people I know are typically the most successful or on their way to being the most successful people.
I was having a conversation with someone because I wake up at 5 a.m. That way I can get most of my writing done before the family's up. This is quiet and crank out some words. So I was at this get together and somebody I just met at the get together was like, you own your own business, so why are you waking up at 5 a.m.? And I was like, I'm waking up at 5 a.m. because I own my own business, right? So I can own my own business. But some people just don't understand. They don't understand the sacrifice or what it takes.
Yeah, I heard somebody once tell me that because he was an entrepreneur and owned his own business, he only had to work half day, noon to midnight.
Yeah.
But yeah, you put in your hours, so that might have to change because as you get the kids in school, they're going to be getting up earlier. And I know Jen's a night owl because I see her on late all the time.
But you know what the nice thing is when they go to school, you have all those hours when they're not there.
True.
Oh.
Beautiful.
But there's something in my future we haven't talked about yet. My wife's going to homeschool our kids.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm
Your
still
life's never going to be the same.
I'm gonna be up at 5 a.m. to make sure I get the words in, and then the wonderful madness ensues.
But that means you can adjust your schedule with homeschooling around what you need it to be. So that's still manageable. And I just don't see Jen wanting to wake up at 5 a.m. to do homeschool.
No. So our normal routine. So if people don't know, my wife has also written some books. But she's
amazing as an author, by the way.
Thank you.
You should all read them. J.R. Castle.
Thank you. Yes.
Is it J.R. Castle? It's J.R. something. Okay, I got it right.
Yeah. Her maiden name was Castillo, and in English that's Castle, so that's where that came from. But yeah, she worked at an advertising agency, and then in 2019, January 2019, she quit her job and came to work for our company. So she does all our advertising, and then we just started doing our own audiobooks and German translations, and now French translations. So she's kind of like navigating that whole arena. So we both work full time for the company. It's just kind of weird how we kind of have to structure our days for it to all work.
And when you're dealing with overseas, the scheduling gets even more complicated because time zones are a thing.
Yeah, it's super weird because both cover artists we use too. One's in Italy and one's in Spain. So it's like everybody that we talk to and everybody that we're working with has like different crazy hours. So it's fun. It's fun. I took this for granted when I started working for myself, but now I see so much value in it that I never have to work with people that I don't want to work with ever again. And I was like, wow, like I've never had that before, right? And it's so powerful.
Yeah, I think you're what? So you're probably 8 hours different because you're 3 from me on Eastern and I'm 5 from UK. So you're probably looking at half a day difference time zone wise, roughly, for Europe. So that gets even more complicated.
So speaking of that, I know that that's all very interesting, but how did you meet Jonathan then? Because we all know you're a hermit and you're the one who introduced me to Jonathan.
So I knew who he was just from the indie writer circle. We were both in the 20 books to 50K, but that group is so big, it's almost unwieldy. They've ended up creating like subgroups by genre because it got so big. But then we met in 2018 in Vegas. So I was trying my hands at craps, and apparently the house always wins. So I was down by like a lot.
You should know better than to try and get lucky.
Well, yeah. And see, then the mob was like, I want my money. So he helped me hide out in the back. You know, it was a thing. We were running and gunning, and you know, that's when the bromance began. But if the mafia asks, my name is Charlie. Yeah, Charlie. See, this is you keeping us on track. Normally that's my job, and I appreciate it.
So, well, I already covered how I met Jonathan, which was via the show. And I'm sure many of our listeners are familiar with you, and just as many are going, ooh, somebody new and interesting who likes to pick on JR too, because that's our national pastime here in this podcast.
Now you get to ask him the important question, the religion question. Does he get to stay? Dun, dun, dun.
He gets to stay. Lost in Space, Babylon 5, or Eureka?
Oh, man. You guys changed it up. Last time I had, I was prepared for this question because last time Stargate was an option, and I always went with Stargate.
We decided to mix it up just so it wasn't same, and so that way we could have the same author back because it would never be the same question.
Yeah, no, I think Lost in Space. That was fun.
Now, are you talking the new one or the original?
I guess both, but if I had to choose, the original.
What about the movie that they put out probably early 2000s? That was good too.
Yeah, I think it was a fun adventure. Like I like those stories.
They are fun adventures. The new one's much more dark and gritty.
I didn't watch all of season 1 of the new one, but I watched some of it.
So I watched all of season 1, and then I don't know. 2020 was dark and gritty enough for me that I didn't need to watch any more dark and gritty.
No, it gets more hopeful at the end, but they leave you hanging at the end of season 2, and I'm still waiting on season 3, which I really hate that being left like that.
That's why they leave it like that.
I know, but
I guess I got into making sure that Netflix makes them come back for the next one.
This is true, but then what happens when the producers cancel it? And I'm like, no, you never gave me an ending.
I feel like there should be like a saving throw arc to like when they do that. They're like, hey, I know we're canceling it, but we're not going to be total dickwads. And we're going to let you finish this arc if you can do it in like a TV movie format.
I'd be okay with that.
Even just like a PDF. Or like a PDF that's leaked. This is how we were going to end it. Give you some closure.
Something like, because I feel that way about like Terra Nova and some other things too.
Oh my God, that show was so good. And Stargate Universe did that to me. Like, oh, we'll finish it in the graphic novel. So I bought the graphic novel. Still a cliffhanger. Jerks. But anyway, we've got one more religion question. We got to see if you can say.
So Conan, Belgariad, or Sword of Shannara?
Probably Conan.
Nice.
I feel like I need to read more Conan. I need more Conan in my life. But with how bananas everything is.
Conan now, right?
Yeah, I'll probably have to do like audiobooks to catch up on all Conan shenanigans.
So the Belgariad was written by David and Lee Eddings. I picked it because it was a husband and wife team, so I thought that might resonate with you.
Actually, I haven't heard of it. That's something I'm going to put on my list though to check out.
It was the first adult. So I got in trouble probably in about fourth grade because I was bored in class. So I was reading books that were inappropriate. I was reading Stephen King just to shock people. I don't even like his works, but it was just the shock factor of like, oh, you're not old enough to read that. And so my mom gave me some Orson Scott Card and David Eddings, the Belgariad series, as my first grown-up sort of chapter books to read. So, and I just went and bought all the audiobooks and I listen to those now. It's still an excellent read. So I don't know if they're still writing or not, but that universe is a lot of fun.
My mom gave me books to deliberately shock my teachers in high school, but they were on religion.
So we lived probably about 3 blocks from the local public library. So she would let us ride our bikes there. And so I didn't always have supervision when I was picking the books to read. And that's how I got away with that. But it was a different time when you could do that. You could roam the neighborhood.
Dare we let you roam the neighborhood anyways? They keep returning you though.
This is true. But we'll move on because this show is about Jonathan.
As you know, we cover both science and fantastical fantasies. So which was your first love, the sci-fi or the fantasy?
I started off in fantasy. So I started off with urban fantasy.
Okay.
And then I went to sci-fi. Yeah, urban fantasy was fun. I did
No, as a reader. As a
reader, yeah. Oh, what did I read in urban fantasy?
Oh, sorry. You're talking about you started writing urban fantasy.
Yeah. So I started off writing urban fantasy and then went to sci-fi, and now I've gotten back to urban fantasy. So people have told me like some advice, and I think there is some truth to the advice, but they told me like, you have to write in one genre, right? You can't write sci-fi and you can't write urban fantasy. And I think maybe that's true depending on how you brand yourself. Like if you're branding yourself as only a sci-fi writer for years, and then all of a sudden you throw this platform that you've built, you're like, hey, I'm going to write something else. That might not work. But if you build your brand as the author first and people fall in love with you and you can have relationships with these people, then I think they're more willing to read whatever you might write.
Well, and I think also some of it depends on, there is a very different marketing and type of audience within sci-fi and fantasy. And if you kind of just ignore it and you don't expect to see kind of a dip in your sales, like I've talked to a lot of authors and they are very leery, and I understand if your primary income is coming from your sales, you don't want to see a dip in sales. But there's going to be a dip when you switch genres, I think. That's just going to be a given. And you just have to bear in mind that you're cool enough to do it and you're cool enough to ride that wave.
Yeah, so, for sure. So like go ahead.
As a reader, what was your first love?
Urban fantasy. So fantasy. So like as a reader, very, very early on, I can remember reading Chronicles of Narnia, Lord of the Rings. So not necessarily urban fantasy, but I guess just fantasy in general. And then sci-fi came after that mix, and I liked it all though. Like I like comic books, I like stories in every form, video games. I mean, they're just stories, right? Just told in different ways and on different platforms.
So we've talked to Kristen Catherine Rush about that, who's been studying the market. She has a business blog for authors, but she's also been writing for a few years. And she thinks that probably people that were born in the 80s are the last generation that would read as widely because, you didn't have digital books. So if you were a voracious reader, you go to the library, you might have read all the books in your genre. So you have to branch out or reread.
See, I blame Amazon for that. Because if you still go to the bookstore, the books are, some Barnes and Nobles have like switched to separating them out a little bit more, but they're still very much mixed together and they're right next to each other. I think it's the advance of doing where you're going down those digital subtracks.
It's the digital more than the because Barnes and Noble, if you look at their online for their ebooks, it's the same subgenre angle. So I think it was the digital change that did it, because now if I like sci-fi, there's an endless number of books that aren't in one store that I can find, and you might never run out of content in sci-fi. And so the force
I have yet to run out of any kind of content that I like.
Well, that means that external force that would, maybe push you into branching off more widely just isn't there. I don't know that there's any like hard and fast research on it, but it sort of fits with the evolution of technology.
That makes sense. I've never thought about it that way, but yeah, I could definitely see that.
So instead of splinter skills, we're having splinter fandom?
Sure, we'll go with that and move right along.
Now that I've learned a developmental psych term at JR that he doesn't know. So what was your first memory engaging in speculative fiction as a genre?
I mean, growing up, probably books, right? Probably reading. My mom would take us to the library. My brother and I would get like these crates of books and we'd take them back. Everything from like DC Comics, Batman to Hardy Boys.
Hardy Boys, I read those.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I read all of them. I read a lot of them, but that author, I don't know if it was a team of authors or one person pumping them out, but there was like a lot.
It's a house name for whatever company. And so it was several authors that did that. I think the Boxcar Kids was one.
Yes.
Some of the Nancy Drew books for the ones, whatever the equivalent for Hardy Boys is. It might not have been Nancy Drew, but whatever the equivalent for the girls was of the Hardy Boys was a house name as well.
I think you're right though. I think Nancy Drew was the equivalent to Hardy Boys.
So what is it about speculative fiction as a genre that you love?
Can you define speculative fiction for me?
Speculative fiction includes fantasy and sci-fi.
And sci-fi, so both. What
because
is
apparently
it?
Calling it sci-fi fantasy isn't enough.
Well, speculative fiction just sounds cooler, and I was trying to avoid word echoes.
It sounds more literary snobby, and I'm not that person.
I mean, I love just the unknown, the adventure, right? It's like the best part of me of reading and writing, because I don't outline when I write, so is going on the journey. Because like I don't really know what's going to happen, so it's fun for me to like have my fingers at the keyboard and I'm right there with the characters figuring out what's happening, and there's explosions, and then this person betrayed this person, and this person had an evil twin, and it's just like bananas, and I love it.
Wait, have you written Evil Twins and Doppelgangers yet?
Doppelgangers for sure. Doppelgangers for sure. I don't think I've done Evil Twin yet, so maybe I'll throw that in the next book.
That could be cool. So how did your love of speculative fiction, sci-fi or fantasy, of the genres transition into writing in them?
I think I always wanted to be a writer. Like it's something I always wanted to do. And then when I graduated from college, there's this thing called money that you need. So apparently there's this thing called money that you need. So I didn't have time to try to figure out how to become an author or navigate. Like I knew nobody in the industry, nothing. So I had to, get a job where I could find a job. So I started working. And in the meantime, I would always kind of like, write a little short story here, or I'd work on a book there. And then I was never fully 100% committed though, right? Because I had a foot still in the business world where I worked with sales and management. So finally I got to that point that we had talked about further where I realized like, hey, this is not going to work. I either have to stop and do what I'm doing now and be 100% committed to being an author, or else it's never going to happen. And I was just miserable in my job. Like it was, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced something where like you're in a position and they're dangling a carrot in front of you and it's always just enough for you to stay there. But you never really get the carrot and you're never really happy. You're just
I think that's what they call the army.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just got to that breaking point where I was like, hey, this is it. Like, am I going to spend, I was there at that job for 5 years. Am I going to spend another 5 years here? Or am I going to, throw caution to the wind and see what happens?
So you took the leap. So
yeah, I took the leap. I'm always reminded of that saying, you guys might have heard it, where somebody's afraid to try and they say, what if I fall? But then say, but what if you fly?
Yeah.
Nice.
So what was you said short story was the first thing you written. What was that short story?
Oh, I wrote a lot of them. I would write like a cowboy bank heist and just put, my wife and I as characters in it. I wrote like a Jedi story, like Star Wars story. I wrote a thriller where there's like
Now, was
a
it
female
a
assassin.
Star Wars fanfic, or was it a okay?
Yeah. Knights. I did Knights, just like, nothing crazy, maybe like 2, 3, 4,000 words just for fun. And then I wrote a full-length novel, like 80,000 word novel, a World War II novel that never got published. It was my first book. I don't even think I have it anymore. But yeah, so I was just kind of always writing because that's what I love to do. And then finally I realized, like, hey, I got to do this 100%.
So are you ever going to publish those early works and share them with your listeners?
You know what's funny?
Readers?
I don't even know if I have them anymore, because I'm trying to think. Like, I was working, I didn't have a computer back then. So I think I was just using like my work computer to write them.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I ever like emailed them to myself because it was work email. So I don't even think I have them anymore.
Huh. Well, if you ever find them, there's a market for authors releasing their early work just to like insider fan type stuff. So if you
That's a
decide
good
to do
idea.
that and you find them, let us know and we'll update the show notes with it.
JR just really wants to share other people's embarrassing stories.
I don't always find them as embarrassing as the authors. I think that's more authors tending to be too self-critical. But so many, I know. Many authors let their own real life experiences influence the stories they tell. So were there any specific formidable moments for you that really shape you as a storyteller?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, even in my writing now, I write characters. I don't really like overpowered characters at the beginning. So I like seeing characters progress and grow. So I think that kind of just speaks to like everything that I've had to go through over these 9 years of publishing. Like, you don't give up, right? I write characters don't give up. Like, you can beat them down, and it doesn't matter how many times that you beat these characters down, that they're just going to keep on getting back up. So I've done that, I think, almost in every series. I think that's just because who I am. And sometimes that's not always a good thing, because I'm realizing now in different business ventures that, like, hey, man, maybe I should just let this business venture die, because this is just like spinning my wheels. And there's like, I'm torn because there's that part of me that doesn't give up on anything, that always sees things through to the end. But then there's a part that I'm like, hey, is this the best way to spend your time? Like the video game. Remember, JR? I was working on a video game. Oh, my bananas.
That was pre-COVID.
That thing was like, I mean, this job has definitely taught me to be patient, but that's like another extreme lesson in patience. So, yeah.
Whatever
so we
happened
started.
to that?
Yeah. So in a nutshell, I wrote a series called Gateway to the Galaxy with my wife. It was fun. It was like Stargate meets Green Lantern. It's the first series that did really well. That was able to bring her to let her leave her job and come back to our house to work for our company. And we were like, hey, let's make a mobile game. So we found a developer and we found a coder, and we got all the way through the game. Like, I wrote the game exists. I've played the game on mobile. It's for a mobile app. And then COVID happened, and the coder got COVID. And then on top of getting COVID, he recovered, but then there was fires near his house. So then he was evacuated. So this is like a year now that we're waiting for this coder to finish the game. The game's finished and even went out to betas. So betas had looked at it and gave feedback. So we're at like the very last step where now all we have to do is just implement beta feedback and put it at the store. And then the coder told us he's no longer interested in working, doing games. So now we have to find a new coder to just do those last two steps, right? All we need is to implement beta feedback and put it up on the store for sale. But now so much time has passed that the developer of the game is no longer interested in doing it. Like, he doesn't want to go and find another coder to be able to do these things and put it up.
Oh my God.
So it's just like, I don't know if you guys have felt this, but in different projects that I've worked on, I can feel momentum. So I can feel when things are happening and things are moving, everybody's responsive, and I can also feel momentum die. And I can the momentum for this project is dead. And it's just like, by force of will, am I going to try to like get the rights to the game back from the developer so I can go find a coder to implement these last sections? Like, I don't mind doing that, but it's been a long process, and I have to restart that momentum with going all over again.
Okay, so if you are a coder and you're listening, because I happen to know a couple that do, and this is something you sound interested in, you could reach out. So are you using just standard gaming code, or is it something special?
Yeah, so the coder who first built it using Unity, and I know nothing about this. So I know it's called Unity, but I don't know anything outside of that. Like, I know that's how he built it. So if I need to get the, all the files from the developer to then find the coder to go into Unity, make the changes and go. And it's so crazy too, because I mean, you guys know I have 2 little kids. So there's 2 kids that we're taking care of. We're into business. I'm still writing 4,000 words a day, 6 days a week. So I'm still like cranking that out. And on top of that, we have like German translations that we're doing, French translations. We're doing our own audio. So, I mean, I'm just like chugging caffeine out of drinking horns, nitro cold brew coffee, like all day long.
Nice.
That is the most badass.
So
Thanks.
that's one of the things I wish I could get into because it gets really hot and humid here. And I'm like, I wish I liked cold coffee, but
making cold coffee the old-fashioned ADHD way. I pour the coffee in, and I walk away, and I forgot that I had it.
Yeah,
because like something happens, like my child suddenly screams from the other room, so I walk in, and I'm like, "What's wrong?" And he's like, "I dropped my toy that bounces." Really? And you screamed?
So that's one of the things.
I have coffee because I'm explaining the importance of if you yell, it better be life, limb, or eyesight.
They tell me, the Brits tell me that drinking the hot beverage in the middle of the heat actually will cool you down. I'm still not convinced, but I drink coffee anyway, regardless.
Brits are weird. We love them.
They also drink their beer weird too. So we could just move on and talk about happy things like Fandom. So the next one's on you.
Yes, happy things, Fandom. So, have you had any cool fan art or cosplay of any of your characters yet?
Yeah, I don't know if I had cosplay, but definitely tons of art. There's my wife and I always talk about this. She's like, you shouldn't give these people our address so they know where we live. I'm like, that's fine. I don't think anybody's they can come over, we can talk and like hang out. I don't think everybody's gonna go crazy on us. So I've had plenty of times where readers will ask if they can have my address so they can send me like different types of fan art or different things that they've made, stuff like that. So yeah, that's been super cool to get like different posters and pictures, water paintings, all kinds of really cool stuff sent to the house. And I don't think that I've ever had anybody though cosplay any of my characters.
Who knows? Cons are starting back up. If you're going to a con, you should tell people so they know to wear the cosplay for you.
And take pictures and send it to them. There you go.
I actually knew one author who got so excited by the first cosplay. He's like, "No, here, have my book. I'll sign it and everything."
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he was adorable. It was very cute. But have you had anybody ask for your autograph away from a book signing?
Yeah, but I mean, I knew the people, so I don't know if that counts. So it wasn't at a book signing, but it's just kind of like people in our circles and friends and stuff like that who told me like, "Hey, I got your book, by the way. I loved it. Would you mind signing it?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, sure."
That totally counts.
Sorry. No. I sneezy. Allergies are fun.
Bless you.
But I don't want to sneeze on camera. And then I realized I hadn't muted my mic, so it was like self-defeating.
It happens. All right.
Okay, so have you spotted somebody reading one of your books in the wild yet?
No, I don't think that. Just like, well, I don't know. I don't really get out much, guys. I'm going to be honest with you. I need friends. I'm usually just in my office, like working on either the next book or something else for the business.
Characters are your friends.
Yeah, the characters in my mind, the voices in my mind are my friends.
So you used to get out to that Orange County library indie author thing that you were doing. So does that count as friends?
Yeah. That's definitely friends. I was the president of the California Writers Club for a few years, and that was fun. COVID shut it down. So COVID came. My mother-in-law got cancer, and our second child all came. That's all right. She's better now. She had surgery. They removed it. She's good to go. So happy news. And then our second child was born all during COVID. It all happened at once. So I had to like get rid of everything that wasn't either providing for my family or was like bringing an income for the business, right? So I just told, the California Writers Club, they've been great, but I just told them like, hey, I need to step away. So the vice president stepped up and took over, and they started doing like Zoom calls, Zoom chats, since we couldn't meet in person.
Neat.
So that counts as friends.
Yeah. I mean, I still talk to them, so they've been super cool and supportive.
Well, hopefully things will calm down and you can begin having a life beyond strictly the zone.
That's super sweet of you to say, but we live in California, So California is like the strictest state out there right now.
And it's
I
doing
think
so well for them.
it is potatoes over here.
But the good news is when it happens, your first outing is probably just going to be a play date.
Yeah.
You've got young kids.
Yeah. I mean, like we're going out now and stuff like that. So it's not like, we're just confined to our house, but it's more like I'm confining myself just because there's so much work to be done.
Absolutely.
So can you tell us the weirdest or funniest fan interaction you've had since you started writing?
The weirdest or funniest? There's lots of different interactions that I've had. I'm just trying to think of like what would be the strangest interaction that might have happened.
I mean, helping me escape the mob was probably up there.
Anything involving JR is inherently strange.
This is true.
Well, one thing that happened that was really cool was at 20 books to 50K in Vegas, there was a person who had come up to me. It was another author, but they said they had read my books and they were waiting to talk to me. And that was super weird because it was the very first 20 books to 50K. So I think that might have been like 2017.
Okay.
2017, right? Because I was talking to Craig Martell, and I just always imagine Craig Martell has like a line of people waiting to talk to him. So there's this lady there, and I was talking to him, and then we looked over, and I just imagined she was there to talk to Craig, right? So I was like, okay, I'll talk to you later. And she's like, no, actually, I wanted to talk to you. And I was like, oh, so that was really cool. That was a cool interaction that I had. Yeah, because I am super humble on purpose. Like, don't make me out to be a saint, because I'm not a saint, right? I have to make sure that I beat myself down as much as possible so that I don't become too enamored with everything that's going on, right? I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I'm already
the Kool-Aid factor.
Does that make sense, right? Like, I don't want to drink my own Kool-Aid.
Drink.
Yes. Okay, good. I'm glad that makes sense.
I totally makes sense because I've seen some of that, and I think some of it is almost like a self-defense shield because editors and reviewers can be very harsh. So, but like there's got to be some level of realism of, yes, I'm hot shit. I can write a book and I can put it out there, but also some element of realism too.
Yeah. I feel like down both paths lie madness. So down the path of just like reading all your 5-star reviews and thinking you're like the greatest thing since Nitro Cold Brew Coffee is madness. And then reading all your 1-star reviews and just saying, oh, I'm horrible. I'm never going to make it. I'm just horrible. That's also madness. So like there's this weird medium that you have to find. And for me, that means me just like continually beating myself down and just continually telling myself like, it doesn't matter. Like that last book that you put out, do better this book. Doesn't matter what you did yesterday. It matters what you're doing today.
I can understand some of that.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll work for everybody, but I always tell myself like nobody cares. Write faster.
That's what they used to when they would do the triumphs in ancient Rome. They'd have that slave that was sitting there next to the general or the Caesar. It's like, remember thou art mortal. Like I totally get that.
Oh yeah, that's a really good way to put it too. Yeah. So I always think of myself as just a slave, like Ben-Hur, tied to the galleys, and they're just rowing, and it's just like, every day, just row.
It sounds so dramatic, and it's like you can just hear it tight.
Yeah.
So, can you give us the Reader's Digest highlight reel of your body of work?
Oh man. Yeah. So started off doing urban fantasy. So it was like the Elite series. That's basically humans who have an extra DNA strand that we don't. So it makes them a little bit faster, stronger, live longer. There's Archangel Wars. That was angels or Nephilim, which were people chosen by angels to carry out their will on Earth. And there was the demons had their people too. And then those are two big ones. Then I went to science fiction, which was Gateway to the Galaxy. So that's the one that's like Stargate meets Green Lantern. And then there was Forsaken Mercenary. I did 12 books with Forsaken Mercenary. And now the master plan, we'll see if it works, is to be able to feed both my passions side by side. So I'm going to be trying to do a release with urban fantasy, with Hunters for Hire, and then a release with science fiction.
Oh, wow.
And go back and forth so that each fan group can be served and that we can do maybe like 3 books in each series each year. So it'll be 3 urban fantasy books and 3 sci-fi books that are released each year.
That'll be nice. They'll keep you fresh.
Right.
What sci-fi series are you gonna be working on?
So for the moment, we're going back to Gateway to the Galaxy to add some more books because there's only 6 books in the main Gateway to the Galaxy series. So I think we're going to try to flesh that out a little bit more.
Okay. So I will say that unlike some authors who it's almost like reading a schizophrenic patient's ramblings when they go genre to genre, not in a bad way, but like there's definitely different voices at each style that they approach, which is a skill. I will say yours has a little bit of a unifying, like, your approach to life is sort of in both because I've read both. The humor, the banter, the not taking itself too seriously, that's sort of almost your brand at this point, and it's in
Yeah.
both. So if you enjoy one, you'll probably like the other. I don't know that you can say that with all authors, and like I said, that's not a bad thing. Like, they're writing different styles, they don't always translate, but I feel like you brought you to both. So
Thanks, man. Yeah, I every time I hit the keyboard, I'm just trying to do 3 things in the book. I want to give people escape because I feel like this world is heavy and there's a lot of things that going on, a lot of things that people have to deal with. So if they can escape into a book for a few hours, that's what I want. I want to make them laugh at some point in the book to again, just give them a little bit of light and hope in their world. And then the last thing is just leave them with hope. You'll never read one of my books and feel horrible about yourself afterwards when you come to the end. You'll always have a smile and you'll have some hope in your heart.
That's good. I think that's important to have. And I had somebody make a comment about how much I read, and I went, oh, no, no, no. When I'm stressed, there's a certain point of stress where all I do is read. Like, that's all I'll do. And if all I'm doing is reading, and it's like, okay, just leave her alone until she comes out of it, is what I've been told is the best advice when you come in and like the house is a mess and I'm just reading a book. It's like, just leave her alone.
Yep.
So all of that sounds fascinating, but we're here today to talk about The Suck, a supernatural monster hunt is the title. It's the first book in the Hunters for Hire series that you just mentioned. So where did you get the premise for this universe? How did you come up with the idea?
So I always loved urban fantasy. I wrote that again 9 years ago. So maybe like around 2012, 2011, 12. Let's say 2012. I was writing that. That's where I started. That was my first love before I went to sci-fi. So now going back, there's a series that I love. And you guys know who the author is. I know you do. So I feel like his writing is so good and it's so attainable as well. Like, I don't think I'm as good as he is. I would never say anything like that. But I feel like the way his writing is like, yes, that's what I want to sound like. But I also have to make sure I play to my voice and my strengths because he knows way more about guns than I could ever imagine knowing, right? So, so I decided, like, what can I bring? What are my strengths in this, right? So, funny story. When I quit my job and I was looking to write full time, I wasn't making any money, right? I had to bring in income somehow. So I was working, I picked up a part-time job at 24-Hour Fitness as a personal trainer while I was, querying, because at that time I didn't know I was going to self-publish. I didn't know anything about self-publishing. I just know the traditional way. So I was querying a bunch of different publishing houses to try to pick up my first book. But in the meantime, I needed money. So I was working at 24-Hour Fitness, and then I got a job as a male model. So I modeled for a few years, as well. Yeah. I paid the bills.
Awesome.
It was weird. That is a weird life. I've done ads for they made me trim the beard and stuff like that too. But I did ads for Bud Light, for Kawasaki, PlayStation, Bank of America, all kinds of weird stuff. And it was fun, but just being on set was like super weird. And they'd have people doing your hair and makeup. It was definitely an experience. I did it for 2 years because after the 2 years, books exploded and took off. So I didn't need to do that for money anymore. But I took that experience and put it into Hunters for Hire because the main character for Hunters for Hire is a struggling male model in Los Angeles. And then he realizes that he realizes that there are monsters, and then realizes that monster hunting pays way more than trying to be the face of like hemorrhoid cream commercials for whatever ad.
Did you do a hemorrhoid cream commercial?
I did not personally. He did in the book, though.
No, he advertised beer and video games like the modern man's man.
Yeah. So I just tried to bring everything that I could bring to the story into monsters hunting, and it's been a lot of fun.
So, did you do any weird esoteric sort of campaign ad campaigns that you didn't mention that you channeled?
No, like you mean like actually me going to sets?
Yeah.
Yeah, being a model is super weird because like you would go to these casting calls, and at the casting call there would be like 100 people who look like doppelgangers of you, right? Because when they're putting out a casting call, they're saying like, "Hey, we need a male who's Hispanic, this height within this height parameters and this age," and then all of you doppelgangers and all your twins descend on the casting call. So there's like like dozens of people in there who look varying shades and forms of you. And then you just go in and they usually ask you to say a couple lines or they'll just take pictures. So that
So
way
it's a
the client.
multiverse of you.
What's up?
Multiverse of you.
Yes. Yeah. It's like the multiverse of you. So from doing that, that's how I got the ads. And then there's also direct bookings, which are really cool. So direct bookings are when you don't have to go to a casting call, that the client just sees your picture and that's enough and they book you. But yeah, it was fun. I did Boot Barn. I think I did maybe like 3 or 4 shoots a year. Let's say like 4 shoots a year. So I only did it for 2 years. So maybe like 8 shoots altogether that I was on.
Okay. So before we dig in deeper to the character and the Hunters for Hire, we're going to take a second where we talk about this glorious cover. So, what was the inspiration that you had when you made this piece of art?
Ooh, it's fancy. You brought it up on the screen. Thanks, JR. Yeah, so I wish I could say it's me, but my wife actually takes the lead on cover design and cover art. So we just wanted to kind of like study the genre a little bit and understand kind of like what urban fantasy readers expect when they expect to see a cover. So this book is kind of like, have you guys seen The Boys? The TV show
Yes.
The Boys? Okay. So this book is like Supernatural meets The Boys.
Okay.
So I wanted to get kind of that type of distressed titling that The Boys used, so you can kind of get an idea, a feel for what the book is going to be about. And then we needed his name, the main character's name is John Hunter. We needed John Hunter on the cover, of course, with the Hollywood sign in the back, so it takes place in Los Angeles. And then what's a urban fantasy book without a full moon?
I was actually jokingly going to ask you if this was you on the cover, but but you already like, this isn't me.
No, it's not me. It's I've had some people ask me that before, though. I don't think it really looks. Maybe if I squint really hard, I don't know.
So, Doc, are you going to be okay? You need a moment. You need to go to your bunk.
I don't have that problem you have.
All right. Well, now you get to ask him the next question.
So what would your 30-second elevator pitch for this novel be?
Yeah, so I would say start with Supernatural meets The Boys. Struggling model in Hollywood discovers that monsters live amongst us and that hunting monsters pays a lot better than his Life Alert commercial he had to do with a 90-year-old woman who sexually harassed him on set.
Wow. That sounds like a very specific
you weren't joking.
example.
No, yeah.
Joking.
What is it that makes your series an urban?
Hold on, Doc. He wasn't joking about that horn. So I'm going to put you on the solo screen. Show us that horn you're drinking from.
Oh, this is my drinking horn. It's part of my brand.
That's awesome.
I take sips out of it like that. It gives me power.
Gives him coffee power.
We had to share that when I saw you on screen doing that. All right, Doc. Next question is you.
So, what is it that makes your series special and unique in the urban fantasy field?
So one thing that I really enjoy about the lit RPG aspect of novels, I've written lit RPG as well, is base building. So that's basically where you have, character who has nothing, and then you get to see them progress and you get to see them attain assets and build. So I really wanted to take that aspect and put it into urban fantasy and monster hunting, right? Because a lot of urban fantasy that I read, the hero is already powerful when it begins, or if they're not powerful, they already have assets, or
they don't think they're powerful, but they actually super are.
Yes, stuff like that, right? So I wanted my guy just to be human. When we meet him, he has nothing. He's like struggling to make his rent in an apartment he shares with his roommate. and I wanted to be able to see his progression throughout the series. See him like learning how to fight and learning how to fire a weapon. And then you get to see him form his own company, and the company's name that they form is Hunters for Hire. So that's their company that they build, and they have to file the paperwork, because I remember what it was like to file a paperwork for my publishing company and how confusing that black hole was.
Yeah, talk about things I don't want to deal with.
Right, yeah, so I make him deal with all that stuff. So you get to see him from nothing to start to build his business too.
Yeah, I got 2 jobs, but I like my day job, and that's the one. So what tropes do you feel the suck really hits on best?
Tropes would just be kind of like what JR was saying, how like all my books that I write have that hero who doesn't give up, right? Because I feel like that's all of us. Like if you're still on your feet, that means at some point you have faced adversity and you've refused to go down. You've gotten back up. You keep on finding a way to get back up. All of us here, I know, have gone through things that we keep on going through, right? Like we don't give up. We're not quitters.
Yeah. And even if it's not hard for you, it might have been hard for that person going through it.
Yes, exactly.
I think they call that the everyman sort of trope. I don't know if that's really a trope or an archetype.
No, I don't know.
But either way, that's sort of what you're describing. It's the everyman. Like this could be you.
Yes, exactly. That's what I keep on saying. Like he wasn't chosen. His parents he never knew growing up weren't like, kings and queens of some mythical land. There's no prophecy told about this guy. He's just a dude trying to do the right thing.
I like that. I think that's great. I think we all need to be reminded that person can be inside of us, and you don't need something special to make you special.
Yeah. One thing that I tell people when they reach out to me, if like they're going through a hard time, I tell them, greatness is inside of you. You just got to rip it out. It's there. Everything you need is inside of you. You just pulling it out and getting it out is the hard part. My daughter, who's 5, she was playing on her fort in the backyard, and I know she can get down from the fort. So let's start there. She can get down from the fort fine. She's jumped down. She's climbed down. She has a little net. She can get down. She can get down fine. I'm not a horrible parent. So one day she's yelling at me from outside, like, I can't get down. Daddy, come get me down. I can't get down. I'm like, Joe, her name's Josephine. I call her Joe. I'm like, Joe, you can get down. You can do it. She's like, no, I can't. So I told her, I was like, Joe, there's nobody coming from you. There's nobody to help. Nobody's coming from you. You are capable of doing this. The good news is that you can do this. And she got down herself.
My mom used to tell me, yes, you're a special flower in a field of special flowers. It's like, yeah, great. I mean, it sounds kind of cold, but it's true. Everybody's special. It's just everybody's special.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. And then another one too is like, I tell her, like, you can do anything you want to do, right? And on the other side of that is a ton of work, right? Like I do believe that you could do whatever you want to do, but like how committed are you? How many years are you going to dedicate to what you want?
So JR loves for me to ask this one, but in addition to urban fantasy, what other subgenres do you think Heroes for Hire fits in?
Other than urban fantasy, so humor is a heavy aspect too. Like when he's on that Life Alert commercial and the 90-year-old woman keeps on calling him Sweet Cheeks.
If I've fallen and I can't get up.
Yeah. He was the grandson in that.
That just makes it worse.
So there's
that's some George R. Martin stuff right there.
I know.
Does she become like an evil monster that he gets to get revenge on?
No, not yet. But I mean, that's always possible. I don't outline, so who knows? Maybe it's possible.
Secretly an old banshee.
Yeah, I have a banshee in book 2. Right now, I'm writing book 4, which is called Godmothered.
Okay,
so that's been fun to explore too. But back to your question, so it could fit into urban fantasy, it could fit into humor. Maybe a little bit of superhero, because there's some superhero type elements in there. Magic, fantasy. I mean, they're trying to bring back the bad. Spoiler alert: the bad guy is trying to summon the ancient ones back through a portal. So I guess it could be kind of sci-fi if it's a portal. Is that portal fiction?
Portal fantasy, portal fiction works. Works
yeah.
for me.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I am not the subgenre person. That's JR's gig. I'm kind of like, it's all fantasy and spec fic for me. Yay!
She's on the train with certain people we know that don't think subgenres exist.
I think they exist, but I think they're just a useful marketing tool.
So onto the story itself. What can you tell us about the main character, John Hunter, other than that he's a model? What makes him unique in the crowded world of science fiction and fantasy?
Yeah, I mean, I try to beat him down as much as possible, and just like me, like he has no shame, so we get to see everything. Like in book one, his fiance breaks up with him, and he just goes into like this spiraling realm of depression where he's eating gallons of ice cream and then Fritos dipped in cream cheese from his couch. Yeah, watching reruns of Golden Girls. So we get to see like all kinds of things that he gets to go through, and that I think we can all relate to, because I feel like at some point, most of us, if not all of us, have been heartbroken. So I remember I went through that in college. So I kind of try to pull from that and give it to him too. So I don't take him like super seriously, right? He's not like the Captain America heroic type who can't do anything wrong and always has like a smile on his face.
Yeah, but he also can't work his DVR.
So. But, in your college days, did you try the Cheetos and the cream cheese? Because that just sounds like a horrible combination.
Actually, I did. Yeah. Spicy Cheetos with cream cheese. You should give them a shot. It's not healthy for you at all. It's super unhealthy for you, but it works. It works.
All the more reason why JR will like it.
Yes, but I can't have it because dieting is a thing. But you gotta sweat and be in pain to look pretty, I guess. So
just like cans of frosting. So frosting cake mix, just eating like straight frosting. He did that too.
So now you're gonna make me hungry. All right, you're getting to be as bad as Ian Malone when it comes to food.
Cookie dough.
Yeah. Stuff like that.
I was the person. I made homemade cookie dough when I was in the barracks, and then ate. So it was better.
Other than John Hunter, were there any secondary characters that were memorable for you?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a character named Shannon Van Helsing. So she is already a hunter when he meets her, and John's roommate is a vampire. So she moves into Haven Apartments, and she's trying to kill his roommate. But she also ends up being an ally, and she's actually the one that pulls him out of his depression, gets him on his feet and going again. So she's super memorable. Evan is the vampire roommate. So he's been around for a long time. He has like a crazy past. That's cool to hear. And I don't know how much I should give away. So if you don't want to hear spoilers, earmuffs for a second. But the way the book ends is that the three of them, Shannon, Johnny, and Evan, form Hunters for Hire together. So nice. Shannon has kind of like already the hunter experience. Johnny is learning, and then Evan's more like the business side.
Well, because he's had time to figure out the paperwork.
Right, exactly. So we can handle all that stuff. And then this is the wolf logo for their company. This is the Hunters for Hire wolf.
So here ends the spoilers. All right, so we've covered the secondary characters. We talked about John Hunter, but let's talk about the bad guys. So do you have a one overarching bad guy, or is it just generally the monsters that are out there?
So that's really cool about doing this series. I've never been able to do it before, where almost each book can be not a standalone, but each book could be on a different type of monster hunt. So I do have an overarching bad guy, an overarching storyline. And then within that, each book has like, in one book, they're hunting down a banshee. They're hired to hunt down a banshee. In another book, he's gone to the Godmother Academy. And another book, the third book is called All Valley Tournament, because I really like Mortal Kombat and Cobra Kai and the tournament style. So he's in the All Valley Tournament in book 3, hosted by the family Grimm. So he's competing against like minotaurs and werewolves and vampires and stuff like that. But the overarching enemy, his name's Typhon, which is the Greek god of monsters. So he's the bad guy who's trying to free the all-powerful evil ones from the portal.
Okay. So what about the most important question? So we know you're a gym rat. So we're going to ask you, speaking of your characters, if John Hunter met you in a dark alley, knowing the hell you've put him through, how do you see that playing out? You got a chance?
Oh, yeah, we would be friends. For sure, we would be friends. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, what about in a deadlift competition? Are you going to beat him?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think he's still learning. I mean, I've only written 3 books. So in book 4, I really like slow burns, right? I really like seeing the character learn and progress and have to struggle and fail, but he learns and he gets stronger. So I think as of now, I'd still be able to beat him in deadlift competition. I think, by book 7 or 8, he's probably going to be able to beat me.
Okay.
So at least we know we've got 7 or 8 books coming. All right.
Oh yeah. One thing I learned about series, if there's any other authors listening, write long series. Please.
Not too long though.
Right. Well, what's too long?
I don't know. Honor Harrington's like $30.
Oh, that's okay. I don't know about that. I don't know. I mean, if it's working for him though, I say go for it.
I mean, it has definitely worked for him, but I think he finally put that series to bed. She won it with the Dragon Award at the end last week.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's awesome.
But at the same time, sometimes it can get too intimidating. So I think writing a book where you can still come in and know at some point, like you're not completely lost if you come in, is a good thing though too.
Yeah, you get to a point where it becomes sensory overload. I'm like, there's just so many books.
I think the Anita Blake series is urban fantasy, and that's like 30 books too. I think the Dresden books are like in the 20s. So.
Yeah, so I have the longest series I've ever written was 12. That's the Forsaken Mercenary series.
Guide for this series. It's a little complicated.
I was thinking maybe 24. I was thinking 24 for Hunters for Hire.
Okay.
We'll see.
Is that a significant Greek number? Since they're fighting a Greek god?
No, I don't think so.
He wishes he was.
I just I know that Forsaken Mercenary was 12, and then everybody was super hungry. It was still doing really well when it ended it. So I was thinking, like, I wonder if 24 is the magic number. So we'll shoot for 24 next to double it.
There you go.
Well, you have a lot to go. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just cranking on the keyboard every day, right? I tell myself, like, there's nothing that exists but the task. That's it. There's no yesterday. There's no tomorrow when I'm writing. There's just now and only the task. And I just get like in this laser focus and just go after it.
So can you tell us, in urban fantasy, there's 2 main schools of trope on it kind of for the world. Is magic out and people know about it? Or is it like still on the DL?
Still on the DL. Okay.
So can you tell us a bit about how that magic system with that world is? Because I know like there's tech but this isn't normally we ask people about like the tech they designed. Did you design magic for the world?
I really like, did you guys watch Lost?
No.
Yeah, no, okay. So I really like mystery elements. I like not knowing everything. I like answering one question and then asking you 2 more. So with the magic system, you know that there is someone from the council who oversees this magic system, and we get to meet one of them. But you don't really know in detail, exactly. Let's sit down and ask her, how exactly does this work? Like, what are you doing? Do you have to say spells, or do you just memorize it? How powerful are you? You get to slowly see, again, a slow burn. So you get to slowly see. So I try not to answer as much as possible and just keep you asking questions.
Since we were talking about characters a moment ago before we get too far afield. So do you have a favorite archetype of character to write?
Yes, the guy starting from the basic and working his way up.
Yeah, like one of my favorite characters is Wolverine. And I feel like early Wolverine, I mean, that guy just keeps on getting beat down, but he just keeps on getting back up.
Early Wolverine is pretty badass. And he wouldn't be the character would not be as logically badass later on in the series if it wasn't for all the early beatdowns.
So you talking early beatdowns before the adamantium or after?
Yeah, I mean, even both. I think even when he first got the adamantium, I mean, always, right? I mean, Wolverine's always getting beat down, I think, in every iteration of him and every time that he's lived. But he just keeps on going.
So you mentioned the world, the magic is not out. That's a good question, Doc, since you're familiar with the urban fantasy landscape. But other than that, what sort of tone did you set for the world? Was it grim dark, but the characters happy? Did you keep the universe sort of basically modern Earth with extras? How did you design the world?
Yeah. So I mean, it's just Los Angeles today. It's Los Angeles today. And do you guys remember Joey from Friends?
You do.
That's John Hunter. Trying to
Oh,
be
there
a
you go.
struggling model. He's not going to win any IQ contests. He's just trying to figure it out. He's just like a good guy at heart trying to do his best. And then we introduce monsters, and he's getting beat up by vampires, and he's trying to find a way to overcome. And then through the series, you find more and more about him. And I don't want to give too much away, but like what he's going to become. I've never written hybrids before, so I thought a hybrid would be fun.
So
Interesting.
does he become the hybrid?
Does he
Spoiler?
become the
Spoiler!
hybrid? Does he become the hybrid?
Spoilers, JR.
All right. So you said that you have magic in this universe and they're sort of discovering it as they go. So of all the magic that you've invented so far, you're on book 4. Which one of those spells or abilities would you want?
This is a fun one. So I really like warhammers. I want to buy one at some point, right? Like half is going to be an axe and the other half is a sledgehammer, just like this massive weapon, kind of like what Thor uses, the final iteration of Thor, like an Endgame. So I gave John Hunter a heavenly weapon, and the weapon is a warhammer that chose him, and it's called Blood Rage. So
And
Blood Rage.
How would you use and abuse Blood Rage?
So Blood Rage has red runes on it that glow, and he can call down lightning. But the first time he calls down heavenly fire from above, he electrocutes himself as much as the bad guys. So that's kind of so he has to find everything out the hard way. So I mean, that was super fun to be able to use that weapon and learn about it, right? Because when he first gets the weapon, he's like us. He has no idea what it does. He just knows that it's chosen him to be able to use to wield it, but he doesn't know why. Like, I mean, when I'm writing, because I don't outline, so I have no idea why either. I'm just like finding this out as John Hunter's finding this out. I'm right there along with him for the journey. So it's really cool to see kind of like step by step the magic progress, the different weapons progress, stuff like that.
So you've mentioned that you've got vampires and banshees. Do you have other fantastical creatures that you're going to explore, or?
Oh yeah, this conversation just keeps on getting better and better. So I always heard, remember you guys talked about how much you like a genre. Were you saying how much you love the different categories?
Yeah.
For genre, right? So Bigfoot romance was one that I've always wanted to explore. So at the beginning of book 3, they're hired by a woman who had a romantic encounter with a Bigfoot while she was camping one night, but she hasn't heard from the Bigfoot again. So she hires hunters for hire, Johnny and Shannon, to go out and see if they can find her love. So that was fun to explore. To explore the Bigfoot romance line.
You're gonna give Chuck Tingle a run for his money.
I just want to have fun. That's what if I'm not having fun, I think I'm at the point in my career where like I still obviously want the readers to have a good time, but I feel like I want to have just as much fun as the readers, and the more crazy and ridiculous things that I'm doing.
I think
like
that comes through in the writing, honestly. Like,
yeah.
If somebody's having fun, it comes through in the writing, I think.
Oh,
So
for sure. Like when I'm writing a book, I try to hit all ends of the spectrum. So I try to make sure you laugh, try to make sure you cry, try to make sure maybe you think a little bit, and then again, always leave you with hope.
So I think telling us without telling us that he's Chuck Tingle was, I'm writing Bigfoot romance.
Yeah, it was fun. It's something that I've always wanted to do. I was working on
your new hashtag, JR. Is this Chuck Tingle?
maybe.
With the little winky face next to it.
Yeah. So do you have a favorite mythical creature?
Yeah, I've given this a lot of thought, JR, so I'm glad you asked. I really like wolves in general, so werewolves for sure. But I also really like minotaurs. I don't know why. I just feel like they're so just like these huge Vikingish beings with their maces and axes and stuff like that. I think they're super cool.
Okay. So I know you are into gaming because I've heard we've talked about this in some of the other episodes, and I will be digging your sci-fi shenanigan interviews out of the archives. We've gotten one that you did with Jonathan Yanez about the Orion series, but we've got some others we're gonna pull out and re-air. But do you draw on your experience as a gamer when you're coming up with some of these creatures?
I feel like I try to draw from everything, right? I feel like inspiration is everywhere. It's in a song that we're listening to. It's for sure in video games, of course, movies that we watch, other books that we read. So I draw from everything. I feel like my mind is a imagination meat grinder. And I just put in all these ideas and my mind comes up with these crazy situations. So for sure, yeah, video games, comic books, everything.
So do you ever think when you're coming up with these ideas, nah, that's probably a bridge too far. I won't do that. Or do you lean into the crazy ideas?
Never. I am just like riding the lightning. Is that a drug term, by the way? I say
don't
that all the
know.
time, and somebody's like, "You shouldn't say that. That means you do drugs." I'm like, I don't know. Is riding the lightning considered like code for doing drugs? I don't
I
I
know.
don't
have
know.
You're asking the wrong podcast, so we're not that hip and cool.
No,
So
but no, yeah. So to answer to answer that question, no, man, I just lean into the chaos. I feel more and more. I'm going to get super deep on you guys. So I feel more and more as I understand really what's going on here. I feel like I'm just a lightning rod for these stories and imagination and these crazy things that come to me. And it's my job as a lightning rod to get these stories and just kind of disperse them out to everybody else.
So do you think you're ever going to merge your sci-fi with your urban fantasy and throw some aliens for them to hunt?
Oh yeah, that would be fun. Yeah. I mean, I'm already super close because I'm already doing portals. I feel like so I have a theory. Let's see what you guys think about this. So this is an idea. This is my hypothesis that the longer and longer an IP goes, eventually it will merge different aspects. So we'll take of fiction and science fiction. So we'll take Marvel as an example, right? It's like Marvel kind of like just started with Iron Man. It's just a guy in a suit, right? You wouldn't say that's fantasy. But then as it kept on going and going and going, then there was Doctor Strange, which was magic. Then there's like, the multiverse. So now it's like mixing fantasy and sci-fi. So I feel like with super long series, they start to blur the lines of fantasy and sci-fi.
Yes, which is probably why I tend to view them as the same genre, which drives JR nuts.
Yeah.
So do you plan on having some like cross IP mashups? Like would the Gateway to the Galaxy hero show up in this series? Because why not? That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, that could be cool to have Frank Wolf. So Frank Wolf's the hero of Gateway to the Galaxy, and he's like he's pretty much like an Iron Man. He's not like Johnny at all. Johnny's like a more kind of like humble, just trying to figure things out, and Frank is like Iron Man. So it'd be cool to have them meet, or maybe in some sort of like a dream land or something like that, where he's trying to give him advice or something like that. It's possible.
So I know since you asked the question about the Magic Doc that you're a huge urban fantasy fan as well. So do you have a favorite creature?
Favorite like character within all urban fantasy?
No, I was asking Doc if she had a favorite creature. You said you like the Minotaur.
Oh,
So
gotcha.
I don't know why. I've been fascinated by urban fantasy since we did the interviews for Mel Todd's anthology that she was in. And we did a couple of interviews with some authors. So we did Fiona Gray, Gemma Clatworthy, and Mel. And it's like the whole concept.
Growing as a reader.
It's what?
Because you're growing as a reader.
Shh, don't you say that. But do you have a favorite character, like a favorite creature?
I really like dragons. Big surprise, I know. But I think one of the things that makes it, I like Mel Todd's unicorn that she has in her Twisted Luck series. And it's a very specific, because it is a unicorn and she does play on the tropes, but she also, it's like a twisty little character. So I think it has to do with if you make it more than just the standard. But I have recently figured out I love anything with telepaths. I think telepaths are great. So telepaths and telekinesis, I'm like a sucker for that. Whether you put it in a fantasy or a sci-fi, I like it. Probably okay. Kids, Cats, and Telepaths, one of my favorite books. That was a quote about the book.
So do you ever mess with telekinesis or telepathy? John? Telepathy?
We'll teach
tomato,
you how
tomato.
to talk like a big person.
So I haven't done it in Hunters for Hire yet because I'm still writing the 4th book, but in Forsaken Mercenary, definitely.
So, okay. That's interesting. So clearly the interview is winding down a little bit. We could ramble on, but I know you've got kids to wrangle yourself. So before we wrap this up, was there anything about the Hunters for Hire series that we didn't ask that you want to tell us before we move on?
No, I think Hunters for Hire, hopefully, if you decide to give it a shot, it'll give you some smiles and laughs and brighten your day in a way that you haven't heard urban fantasy before. So, like, I always think that tropes exist for a reason. So I try to get 80% of what you know and love about a genre and keep that, right? Because it's the whole reason you're reading this book because you love it. And then maybe it's 20% of something new, like my spin on it. So that's Hunters for Hire. But if you wanted to talk about something really cool that's going on with the Forsaken Mercenary series.
Of course we do. We love hearing really cool news, especially if it's positive stuff.
Yeah, it is wild. And I want to say first, like, nothing has been signed yet. So like no money has exchanged hands. So it's not like 100% for sure this is happening, but I'll tell you what has happened and you can decide how close or how far we are. So a few months ago, I got an email about Forsaken Mercenary, and it was a production company asking if the rights were available to make into like a TV show or movie. And I've had 2 other series optioned before. So, I wasn't like, putting all my eggs in one basket, buying a house in the Hamptons and getting a private jet and popping champagne bottles yet. But I was like, oh, yeah, that's cool. Like, somebody's interested. I'm telling them, yeah, that the rights are available. And then they emailed a couple weeks later and they're like, cool, we are going to have all our directors and writers read this book. So we just want to make sure that all the books in the series are available. And I was like, yeah. So then I started looking a little bit more like, who is this company, right? So I did some research on the company. So they made Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise, I Am Legend with Will Smith, The Matrix, Constantine. Oh, wow. And they've been around for a long time. They've done a bunch of movies and a bunch of TV shows. So I got a little bit more excited, right? Like, hey, this is super cool. Like, who knows if anything's going to come with it? So a few more weeks go by and they're like, hey, would you be willing to have a conference call with one of our directors? He read the book and loved it. He would like to be involved. So I was like, yeah, for sure. So I had the Zoom call with him. It turns out he's already won an Emmy nice. For something that he's done. If you don't recognize his name, you would recognize his work for sure. So I talked to him and it was super weird because like you guys know me pretty well. Like I don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about myself. Like I always think like my books can be better. Like any book that I write, I can be better the next time. I can learn, I can be better. Even if I'm 1% better with each book, I need to be better. So hearing somebody of his caliber, who's already done movies for Netflix and he's already done TV shows and won an Emmy and all that stuff, to say how much he loved Forsaken Mercenary, I'm like, that was like super weird. Like I didn't know how to compute because I'm like trying to beat myself down on a daily basis, telling myself to do better in every way that I can. So it was cool and it was kind of eye-opening because I always thought that to get a TV show, a movie deal, I needed to sell millions of books, right? Like I needed to be like a J.K. Rowling or a Stephen King, like sell that many types of books to get noticed. So it was kind of like a wake-up call to me, like, oh, maybe I don't. Maybe my work is good enough to be able to be, considered for TV or movies. So everything goes really good with the call. We have another follow-up call. 2 weeks ago, he took me out to lunch because he's here in LA. So I got to meet him in real life and hung out. And apart from the Forsaken Mercenary project, he asked me if I would write with him. Like he has a movie in his mind, an idea for a script that he wants to do. But he's a director first, not necessarily a writer first. He can write, but that's just not what he is, his passion at the forefront. So I was like, for sure. So we're partnering on a different project as well. But back to Forsaken Mercenary. A few weeks pass, and then the production company says like, hey, we have a writer, a script writer who's read the books and loves it. And he wants to be part of the project. Would you mind talking to him? And I was like, no, for sure. So it turns out that this script writer did Blade Runner. He did American Gods, Neil Gaiman show, American Gods. He did an adaptation that was a comic book and is going to FX for a live action TV show called Why the Last Man. So he's done a lot of stuff. So I talked to him and then the same thing. He was telling me like, oh, I loved Forsaken Mercenary. I love your characters. And in my mind, I'm just like, what? Because like, I mean, this guy has done all kinds of stuff. So I'm thinking like, oh, whoa, this is weird to hear. Because again, like I I don't think of how good or bad my work is. I just think of doing better. That's it. So that's really cool. So I talked to the production company again, and basically what they're doing, because I want to understand the process. Like, hey, why am I meeting with all these directors and script writers? Like, did we do it? Are we there? Like, I have no frame of reference, like where in this process we are. So they explained to me that there's something called packaging. So what packaging is, that the production company already knows all these people, right? So they already know the directors and the script writers and actors and showrunners. So what they do is they package a product. And what that means is they get a director that wants to do it. He's already involved and sign on. They find a script writer. They find an IP. They'll find a showrunner, maybe sometimes an actor. Everybody's involved. Like they're assembling a crew. They have the crew that wants to do it. Then they pitch to like the HBOs or the Netflixes or the Amazon Primes and say like, hey, we have the story, the script writer, the director, everybody's here. You just give us the money now to make it. And then, so it's kind of like, I kind of look at it like they're assembling a crew to go to outer space. And then we have to go to the studio for the ship. Then we're just telling the studio like, hey, we have this awesome crew. All these people are involved. We want to go to space. Now give us the spaceship.
Nice.
So that's where we're at. And it's weird because at every phase that this has happened, because this is over the course of like 3 or 4 months now that this has all been going on, I always think like, okay, this is where it's going to stop. I'm never going to hear from these people again. Like it didn't work out for whatever reason. But every time I say that, it's like, oh, now I have a call with the director. Now I'm going out to lunch with the director. Now we have a script writer who's interested in have a call with him. So even right now, I'm telling myself, it's probably not going to work out. I just need to concentrate and focus on what I can control. And the only thing I can control is working on that next book. So I'm just going to stay in my little cave and just work on the next book. But who knows? That's the furthest I've ever gotten down the process. And everybody that I've talked to says if they've already been packaging it, and if they're already this far interested and they're spending their resources and getting people involved, that it's a good sign. So we shall see.
All right. Well then. So as we wrap, that's awesome. Fingers crossed for you. I'd love to see that show. I will watch it. And we might even do the review on the podcast.
Yeah.
How can listeners find you? And as usual, all the links will be in the show notes.
Yeah, so if you want to jump on our email list that we call our pack, it's jonathan-yanez.com. On Facebook, I'm always active there. And then we have our Facebook group called Jonathan Yanez's Reading Wolves. So that's where we all go to hang out. So either of those two places are the best ways.
Okay, and you can find us on our website at anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades, anchor.fm/blasters tech and tech blades. You can follow us on Twitter at SF_fantasy_show, Sierra Foxtrot _fantasy_show. You can email us at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Don't hate Cisca. Just because I was a tour guide once doesn't mean anything. I still got it. So Blasters and Blades Facebook group is facebook.com/groups. That's important. /Blasters and Blades podcast. You can support the show at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley, where you can make a one-time donation. Be sure to put in the comment section that it's for the podcast, and I will keep Doc Cisca and Nick Garber duly intoxicated. They will drink until their liver surrenders.
Never surrender.
There you go. Galaxy Quest supports that thing. And you can also do a reoccurring monthly subscription, much like a Patreon type of thing, on anchor.fm/Blasters Tech and Tech Blades. You can stop mocking me and bring it home now.
I will never stop mocking you. Nobody likes a quitter like that. Thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For the absentee, addle-brained Nick Garber, J.R. Handley, I'm Cisca. This was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be here next time. Same place, same group, covering some weird topic, and of course, picking on JR and expressing our love of all things fantasy, sci-fi, and anything that goes boom.
Absolutely. And we're going to end this on a positive note. So pineapple does not belong on pizza. And Pern
belong on pizza.
And Pern was fantasy.
You aren't allergic to belongs on